Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Faith Focus Weekly Discipleship Podcast. My name is Kevin Rognus, and as always, I want to encourage you to make sure you hit the subscribe button, whether you're watching on YouTube or listening on any of our podcasting platforms. We just want to make sure that you never miss any of our content. So always do that, and then, of course, share it with anybody who is curious as well. Today is an episode that I'm really excited about because I'm joined here by Nick Muroki. He works with Team World Vision. He may be familiar to many of you at Faith Covenant if you were watching on Sunday or if you were at the service on Sunday. He came and was doing a bit of a launch to our Team World Vision season for 2023. And so I'm just here to talk to him more about that. So thank you for having me over. We're here in his office. So introducing Nick Muroki. Nick, thank you for being with us.
Thanks for having me. I was just telling them earlier, thank you for allowing me a new opportunity. I don't get to do this kind of thing often, and so this is kind of fun.
Yeah, because unfortunately when we do the launches at church, you only have a couple of minutes to kind of talk to people. So I was really excited to give you a little bit more of a platform because Team World Vision is something I've been involved with for many years now, and it's something that I love, and so I'm just always eager to give it a little bit more space. So
yeah, we don't have enough time to cover all the areas of Team World Vision, but we'll hit the highlights today.
Absolutely. Before we get too much into that, just tell us a little bit about yourself. You have a family, you got kids. What's a little bit of your story and who you are?
Yep. So I was actually I'm going to go a little further back because my story is unique in the sense that I was actually born in Kenya.
Okay.
And my family, we moved to U.S. Back in '83. So I was 4. Okay. That means I turned really 40 in less than a month, and that's been pretty cool to come to that realization. But grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. After college, I moved to Colorado, where I did a discipleship program. Worked with that as a ministry that I ended up working with till about 2009, 2010. But the best part was that's where I met Pam, my wife, Pam. And so we've been married now going to year 11, I think this August will be. And so we were in Denver for 10 years, had our first daughter, Emery, and then we decided, hey, you know what, we probably need some help. Be good to be close to family. Yep. So my wife's from Kansas, so we moved to Kansas City, and we were there for about 3 years, I think, 4 years, something like that. Had our second daughter, Tessa, April 1st, baby, my April Fool's child, which is...
So did you believe Pam when she said she was going into labor at first?
You know, I did. Ironically enough, if you know me well, you know I'm a joker. And this is true story.
So everybody else probably didn't believe you.
That's it. Like, literally, I was texting people and saying, hey, we're heading to the hospital, baby's coming, and I think my sisters didn't respond. They maybe did a ha-ha. People were not. And I was like, I need to be focused what's happening here and not try to convince people. And I'm like, is this good or bad? People, I feel like this is serious. We're having a baby, right? But she was...
And were you pretty close to the due date still?
It was, I think the due date, I think we're a day or two early maybe.
Okay.
And so it was just I think people were...
So they should have had reason to believe you.
They should have, but I'm a joker. I realized in that moment, I was like, okay, we got to maybe pull back a little bit here because we might need someone to show up at an important time here. But she was born April 1st, and when I sent the baby pictures out, I thought you were joking. Oh, congrats. It worked out well. Because Pam, we were focused in the hospital. It was late at night out on the East Coast where my family was. And so we were fine. But it was just funny that those were the texts I was getting. But that was pretty cool. So Tessa, and she lives up to that April Fool's birthday. She was the one that was in here earlier, just kind of peeking in, and she loves to be, have fun too. So, and then we actually ended up having our third daughter, 3 girls. I have 3 girls, and our third, Joelle. So we call her Jo, or JoJo. That's what she likes to be called. And so after that, we actually, back in 2021, had this really cool opportunity to move to Minnesota. And so the ironic part about that is I thought it was the craziest thing. I was like, I don't know, Pam, should we move? We're here in Kansas City, we got family, because we moved here to be closer to family. But Minnesota, for some reason, has always just kind of felt I don't know, there's something special about it.
It's a great place.
I'm
a little biased.
It really is. It felt, because when we moved to Denver, Denver had that same feel because it was kind of a smaller market town. Like people really didn't know about Denver that much, but then over time it just grew so big,
Sure.
And we were like, okay, this does not really feel like home so much. But Minnesota almost feels like that kind of like got the outdoors stuff. You have a really active community, and so I'd come up here for work a couple times. I was like, this place is awesome. Now that was in the summer. I'd never been here in the winter.
Winter is a very different thing.
That's how the Lord works. Just put a little wool over your eyes here. You don't know too much. But again, ironically enough, my best friend growing up, right? We grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania together. He went to school in California, and I went to Denver, whatever, and we went our separate ways. But he actually ended up moving to Minnesota.
Okay.
And now we are neighbors. So
That's awesome.
he and I, like, it's just the coolest thing ever. Like his daughter, my daughter in the same class.
Nice.
I always joke, like, because they sat next to each other for a long time. I was like, they would never let me and Steve sit next to each other, But it's been really cool to, just build community here. We have we love our neighborhood, and so we're just excited to be here. And I don't even tell Pam, I'm about to tell everybody, but we're expecting our fourth, and so that is in September. And so I'm really hoping it's an August baby because I'm all about the summer birthday parties, and we don't have any of those.
Right.
And also, it'd be nice if it was a boy, but happy and healthy. We'll go with that.
Yes. Well, if it gives you any hope, my mom had 3 boys and then a girl. So it can happen.
All those stories help, man. They really do. People, I probably think about it more to let people know. I'm like, please be a boy. So that's awesome. So yeah, here we are. I think this is now year 2 into our life in Minnesota, and we love it.
Yeah. And so how did you get involved with Team World Vision, and what's your role here at Team World Vision?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. I actually didn't even really know I didn't know Team World Vision. I knew World Vision. My parents had worked in ministry in some capacity growing up, and I went to Christian high school, Christian college, and worked in ministry. So World Vision was being one of those ministries people have always heard about. I didn't know much about it though, let alone that I'd end up working for World Vision. And so at the time, this is back in 2018, I was working from home, just had a corporate job, and it was great. I loved it. I always joke, I could just take time to go over to Topgolf at lunch, and it was
nice.
it was a great gig. I mean, I loved it, and it was a great company. They were, if it wasn't for this, I would have never left. Probably.
Yeah.
It was, and I loved it, and things were good. And then God said, "Hey, man, I'm going to tap your shoulder and ask a little bit of you here." And so, one of my good friends from college reached out to me. And he said, "Hey, there's a job opportunity to work with World Vision, and it's in Chicago." And every time like somebody's asked you to think about something like that within ministry, or like, "Hey, why don't you it's like you have to okay, I got to think about it." But he said Chicago, we have a baby. I'm like, I'm off the hook, because I worked in ministry for a long time after before, and it was hard.
Yeah.
And I watched my parents do ministry. And I said, I don't know how often I'll get.
Good.
How often will I go to Topgolf? I don't know. But obviously, really things that I thought were so important at the time, like just being home and not, there's this. I'd adopted this idea that it was just, I can be on the sidelines. I can send money. I'll write checks. I'm all about it. We will support you in prayer, all those things. And so, but he said Chicago, and I said, "Hey, man, I can't do it. Just moved, got a baby." And I really felt like that was legit. Like I can't. What are you gonna do? But then he called back like 2 months later. He's like, "Listen, this is crazy. There's an opening for someone in Kansas City." And I was like, "Oh, okay. Well, thanks for that. That's a great idea. I'll no." I still wasn't interested because for me, just again, I was in a place where I don't know, and I'll probably paint this picture later on. We talk about like how it's transformed my life. But it was really interesting to see that whole process, how I was kind of running, lack of better words, from that calling.
Yeah.
And he just said, hey, well, you just talk to the lady who's doing the hiring for that position. And so I told Pam, I'll take the call, but I'm just going to tell her, no, thank you, appreciate it, because I want to, I'm not going to be like, not take the call.
Right.
And she called, very nice, very strategic, I think, looking back, because she never asked me to apply, never like made a big deal, just like how, just a quick call. And she said, hey, I'm going out to the field to visit some of our work. I'll be back in 2 weeks. Would you just pray about it? Maybe this is something God has for you, is calling you into. And I was like, man, they're really good. These guys are good. Because of course I have to pray about it. And just something happened within those 2 weeks. I started watching some of the videos of these kids walking for water. I had a 3-year-old at the time, Emery, and a newborn pretty much. And my 3 or 4-year-old, she was 3 or 4 at the time. She said, we were watching a video. She'd say, "Why are these kids walking? Like, what is like?" It was, her mind was like trying to comprehend what's happening. All while my mind is trying to be like, how am I not aware of this? Like, I mean, I know like access to clean water is a big deal, but I haven't connected the pieces.
Right.
And especially being born in Kenya, there's a lot of areas in that country that have issues getting access to clean water as well. Mm-hmm. And so I just was like, I felt, okay, this is something I need to like not just pray about. I got to think about it. Like, this is actually maybe could happen. But then they started talking about running.
Yeah.
And I was like, nah.
That's another level.
You guys, you lost me at running. 'Cause, I was not a runner. Like, that's not my, you're just like hearing this joke, but I am Kenyan, but I literally don't run like a Kenyan. Like, I'm so slow. We have friends that we run with.
I'm not fast either.
Well, it's just funny. People are like, you're Kenyan? Okay, all right, okay, I can keep up. And
not every Kenyan is fast.
No, this one especially is not. But I hated running.
Yeah.
And I remember, even at some point going out and trying to see, okay, let's say, hypothetically speaking, I take this job and I have to run. Can my body do it? And I got up one day and I took off. I think I made it a couple blocks, and there was kind of a tiny incline, and I was just gassed.
Oh, yeah.
And my goal was to do a mile, and couldn't do it.
Yep.
And I contemplated calling Pam to pick me up, but I couldn't do it. I crawled back pretty much. And I just
done that.
Yeah, and I was just like, hey, you know what? Like, this is like honestly like it's not doable. Like I don't think I can do it. So all these things were telling me no, but my heart and God was showing me, yes, you can. I have you can't see it here, but the lady who ended up hiring me gave me that framed picture where it says, God doesn't call the equipped, he equips the called. And that was just kind of rolling around in my head and my heart. And when my daughter asked me, what can we do to help these families, these kids? Pam's over there in the kitchen like, yeah, Nick, what can we do? Is there anything we can do? And I think she knew for the whole time, like, this would be a great opportunity for me. And honestly, like, it just over that time of just like, I think it was like 2 or 3 weeks, eventually getting to a place where I was like, I have to have this job. If I don't get this job, I'm going to be so sad.
Yeah.
This is a really, I don't know how I'm going to run. I don't know how to fundraise. I'm not a public speaker. I don't do any of this stuff, but this is where God's called me.
Yeah.
And I felt like there was just like this nudge of like this like faith that I didn't even know had in me to do something like that. And I was like, yes, I'll do it. And it's been the best experience of my life, and I wouldn't change anything for it. Yeah.
That's amazing. And so a little bit of a clarifying question too, because you said you're familiar with World Vision but not with Team World Vision previously. What's the relationship between the two?
So World Vision is it's a nonprofit Christian organization that does a ton of humanitarian work all around the country, all around the world. And actually here we have a World Vision US team that does a lot of stuff with responding to like hurricane or other crises. They're in Syria and Turkey right now doing work. And so they are just an amazing organization that has done so much to help support so many different communities, vulnerable communities. And we always say, our hope is just to love our brothers and sisters, the least of these, the way Christ has called us to do that. And so they do that in a way that I just think is just it's amazing. And they found ways to kind of branch out through that to kind of help touch locally how we are doing life here. And so that's where Team World Vision came into play. That was started by Michael Chitwood. I think it was back in 2006 or 7.
Sounds right.
Sounds right. Let's go with that, right?
True.
Edit that if he sees this. And it started in Chicago. And there was a pastor there, Steve Spear, who's on staff now. And Chitwood said, can we invite your people to come run this marathon, and then we could, use that to raise money for clean water. And Steve was like, you can invite whoever you want. Nobody's going to run. Like, no,
who would do that?
I know my congregation. They're not going to respond to that. And to Steve's surprise, like 70 people said yes or something like that, something crazy. And they ran the Chicago Marathon. And they raised a ton of money for clean water. And it just grew and grew and grew. And now we're in different markets. We're in Seattle, we're in Los Angeles. Chicago's probably our biggest market that we have. In Kansas City, where I was at, obviously, which is where I started for this first 3 years. And so Team World Vision exists, in my opinion, to bring transformation here locally and globally. And so I'm sure we'll break that down a little bit more, but Team World Vision is just a part of the global, the World Vision under that blanket of World Vision.
So Team World Vision's focus over the years has primarily been about clean water. So why is that kind of the thing that Team World Vision hones in on? What's special about that cause? Yeah,
I mean, there's a I don't know, a quote, we always hear, like, water is life. I feel like that's from Ted Lasso for some reason, but I don't know. But water is life. Like, it's something that some of us take for granted. Like, I woke up this morning, I had water on my nightstand.
Yep.
I was within 5 feet of walking and getting more water. And then every time there's water, I have access to it. I don't even think about it. I just drink it. I shower. I waste it at times, which I realize, things that I never even thought about. But there's people who wake up every day and they don't have access to water. They have to walk 6 kilometers, just to get access to water. And we know that, based on everything we know right now, that a lot of that water is usually contaminated, leads to sickness, death. I think a lot of these communities, like 50% of the kids under age 5 die. So it's like a literal, like, life and death situation. And I think at the time, Emery was 4, and I was like, oh, she wouldn't live to see 5 if we lived in one of these, potentially if we lived in one of these areas. And so it's clean water, to me, is what I think kind of brings it together for building off for health, education, child protection, because a lot of these kids who are doing it are girls. And they're doing it at night. They're doing it, like, in dangerous places, and they're missing out on school. And so if they have access to clean water, now they can go back to school. Now they can get access to healthcare, and they can get, child protection is something that we can kind of, be able to help with in those communities. But if they don't have access to clean water, it's so hard to live or experience what we've come to as a term, the fullness of life. Which we all, a lot of times take. Not all of us do. I get that, but I think I'm guilty as anybody else. The fact that we were watching that video, me and Emery, and I'm like, whoa, this is happening. Like, I mean, looking back, how could I not know that?
It's so far removed from most of our experience.
It really is. And so I think the cool part of tying running, which we all hate, obviously, to bringing clean water to these communities, is such a cool way to go about it, because I think what ends up happening is you're going to go through a journey, a transformational experience yourself here going through that. I did. And so at the same time, we're making this impact globally and changing the lives of all these kids and the communities around them.
So to give people a better idea of what happens, so basically Team World Vision convinces people to run a marathon. Most people who sign up with Team World Vision have never run a marathon, or a lot of people have not even run a 5K. And so, once people sign up to do the marathon, they then, tell their communities on social media or phone calls or whatever, parties, and then raise money that way and ask for donations. So there's kind of two pieces to getting involved with Team World Vision as a runner and fundraiser. So there's the running aspect of it, and there's the fundraising aspect of it. So what has been your favorite part of the running aspect of it, even though you're not necessarily someone who loves running? And what's been your favorite part about the fundraising aspect?
I think did you say we convince people, or how'd you
yeah, we convince people or invite people.
Trick them into running?
I was tricked. I won't even lie. I was tricked by someone named Christina Nyquist. So if you're watching, you tricked me. You still owe me a marathon.
Yeah. Shout out to Alyssa Condati, who tricked me into running. But sometimes we need tricked into doing something that we have no idea is going to absolutely transform our lives. Yeah. And so there are two aspects running, and it's really cool because we have what we call the couch to finish line plan. Mm-hmm. So you could have someone like me who could barely do a mile, almost had to call for a ride home. And I've already done, a half marathon, I've done a full marathon, I've done a ton of other races hood to coast. And so, I wouldn't say, hey, I'm a runner. I wouldn't say I love running, but I can run, and I feel like the training that we have is really geared to individuals who have never done anything like that. And we always say run, walk, dance, whatever it takes to get past that finish line. Because we have a lot of walkers. Last year, my first year, there was a guy at Woodbury, I know, who walked the whole thing. It was so cool. Like just older gentleman, I think he was in his 60s. Mm-hmm. He'd never done anything like that. Yeah. Okay? And he just feels this call to move his feet for clean water, sticks with the plan, and he crosses the finish line. Yeah. And there's nothing like that first finish line. I mean, I was in tears. It's different. The first half marathon in tears. The full marathon was in tears for different reasons. But like finishing that, I felt just like, wow, Nick, how did that happen? And that's like, obviously God is someone that had called you into something, and he said, you're not equipped, but I'll equip you, right? And that's how we do with running. If you're not equipped, we get that, but we have the tools to get you where you need to be. And so I wouldn't say I love running, but I love the experience that I've gotten to, just get healthier, the clarity of mind. It got me through 2020. I don't know how. I really
that was a rough year for everyone.
It was a rough, and through those things, like it really, a lot of folks have kind of had that same experience. But then fundraising is, scary. It's a scary word. And, kind of tying back to my childhood, part of the reason I never thought I would be doing anything like this is my parents, when they did ministry, they raised support, right? So, this is 80s, 90s, we're putting together newsletters and linking them and sending them out, like to that's how we were able to survive. They had to send out and get support, and I can tell you, I was just always rolling my eyes. Come on, like why? Like this is awful. Like can we do something else? Why are you doing this? I always say like there was this jealousy of all these kids that I knew who had the nicer clothes and nicer houses. We had a van, right? A minivan, only one sliding door. Other people had two sliding doors.
I remember those one sliding door vans.
And I was like, I mean, that's how stupid I was. That's how my mind worked back then, But I was like, that's hard. I don't want to fundraise. I don't want to ask people for money. That's not fun, you know? Fast forward to today, I look back and see like what a blessing that was for so many people to help support my parents. They were invited into that journey to see George and Ruth Muroki doing this work, and they did a lot of work in Kenya. And it would, I now look back. Sometimes I take missionaries over to visit the work that they were doing, and like all the stories that I heard and all the like their transformation that happened through that. it was a real blessing for people to be part of that. And I started realizing that that's what we do here. Like we are not begging for money. We're not, we're not like, afraid to ask boldly for people to join us on this journey, because we're allowing you to partner with us in our experience. I remember when I first started my first year fundraising, I was a little hesitant, like to call friends. Especially I called some college friends, some buddies, and said, hey, I'm running this marathon, was half marathon time, and they stopped me there. Just started laughing.
You're running?
Muroki, you're running? Ha 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 ha. I was like, yeah. I'm honest. I've been training, like. And they were like, that's unbelievable. We have to know why, how, like what, how did this happen? And I said, I'm running for clean water, so would you support me? And you don't know how many people were like, if you finish that, I'm giving you $500. It was like people were like giving money, like and throughout the season when I'd post something on Facebook, just the encouragement that I'd get from them, and even after a season, like seeing other people say, hey, I think I want to run too, and it was like, oh, I'm so glad I put myself out there. I asked. It seemed like this thing that I would hate and not feel comfortable, but after being able to see, first of all, raising whatever we raised, I think like $3,000 back then, like that was clean water for so many people, right?
Yeah.
And that was so awesome. But also all the folks that here in the, who were supporting me and how encouraged they felt being part of that. And like they felt loved that I was even inviting them into that too. So fundraising can be scary. And it's
I'm still scared of it. And I've been doing it for almost, this is my 8th or 9th year with Team World Vision.
Hey, it's my job, and I still get scared.
Yeah.
But I think the why always overrides it, right? We always know that there's a purpose behind that ask, and we are gonna, boldly ask that people join us on that journey with us, and it becomes actually this way to bless them as well in a way that kind of seems counterintuitive, but it really is a blessing for all those who are part of that journey. And so fundraising actually has become one of the more fun parts of what I do, which is really what we're doing. But the two, fundraising, training, they go hand in hand. We actually have a really cool fundraising kit that we kind of, it's on, you can access it through your portal whenever you sign up, create a team, where it kind of walks you through the 26 weeks of fundraising, along with the 26 weeks of, so we do have 26 weeks of training.
Yeah,
and
that's
so
half a year.
And it starts in April, okay? And so my first group run here, it was kind of snowy. And I was like, we're built different here. Because in Kansas City, I think we started in June.
Oh, okay.
And it was like nice, sunny,
well, in Kansas City, they don't have snow on the ground ever.
I used to think we had winter down there.
No,
that is not winter. You cannot have like 2 or 3 days in January where you have 60 degrees and say you have a winter.
Right.
That's not possible. So
no, I had moved to Kansas for a couple of years, and I just laughed when people told me like, oh, winter, this is so, I'm like, this is not winter. Like,
I'm an official winter snob.
Yeah.
I will, when people tell me it's like, we got 1.5 inches, school's canceled, I'll be like, all right. I'm not judging, but it's a
bit different here.
It's a little different here, so.
Yeah.
But
well, one word that's come up a lot already in our conversation is the word transformation. And so I know I've seen transformation in myself and in so many other people through my time in Team World Vision. What kind of transformations have you seen either in yourself or other people, in churches? What have you seen happen?
Yeah, I've seen people have their marriages restored, myself included. I've seen their health restored. Like me, I was actually about probably 30, 40 pounds heavier at the time when I first started. And, just not able to physically be present with my kids. Like I was like exhausted, like trying to but now, they're out there sledding right now. I'm sure I'm going to be able to run out there later and have some fun with them, where I would have never been able to do that.
Yeah.
I think, Pam will tell you that, man, it's so good to have you present, just present. I think that allowed me to go through some soul searching and just kind of talk to God on these runs, because that's a lot of times during the week you're running by yourself, right? We have group runs on Saturday. I'm going to throw that out there. Group runs are the best every Saturday. But throughout the week you're doing these solo runs.
Yeah.
And I remember as I kind of started picking up miles, let's say I would get to, 3 miles or 4 miles. The runner high is real, which to this day, people say doesn't exist. For me, I think it's some weird like spiritual experience. That's what mine is, because I throw in some great worship or something, and I remember I would just be processing life and where we are and where we're going, and sometimes be in tears. I'm sure people are looking like, that guy's crazy. I'm like, no, the spirit broke me. I can't, and it's just.
Or they're thinking running's really painful. Dude's crying when he's running. Why does he keep going?
That's actually exactly. They're like, this is stupid. Why is he doing?
He keeps going out here. He's crying every time.
Just stop. Go home. But really, God was just breaking me.
Yeah.
And like I said, I've heard other stories of people who were able to reconnect with God in a way they hadn't before, and just relationships restored. Even like with churches. We had a church in Kansas City. Pastor Tom. I remember asking him like, "What made you say yes?" And he said, "Well, I think you guys tricked me." That seems to be like a theme. Yeah. He didn't want to do it. His church was going through a really difficult time with some transition stuff that was happening. And he said, it was Alyssa actually who invited me, who launched his church. And like a bunch of them said yes, right? And they were like, they did it together. And for some reason, that galvanized them in a way that he would have probably never been able to do just by, like words and like, hey, let's like encourage. They physically went out and did something together. They were doing group runs together. They were encouraging each other with their fundraising, and all these things that like they were just. It was a way to unify them that they needed. They didn't even know they needed.
Right.
And a ton of them finished that, and they're still one of our best partners in KC. They come back every year. Some of our best captains come from that church. In fact, one of our captains from that church who's been doing it for years now was at NLG, our captains gathering last week, and it was just great to connect with her and just hear their story again, and just how grateful they are to this day. And so it's not just ourselves that are going through that transformation. All our runners who say yes and are committed to that process. You're not the same person day one than you are at that finish line. It's a radical transformation that happened to me, and I look back and when I call and say, hey, I'm running a marathon, another one. It's not like they're not laughing, it's like they know it's something I'm committed to, and I'll always be in support of Team World Vision in any way I can help them, because I believe in this ministry so much.
Yeah, well, I feel the same way. Like. To me, one of the things that has really struck me over my years with Team World Vision is the verse in Philippians, like, all things are possible through God. Like, I've realized that I can no longer say I can't do that because God has made it possible. And like, people, tell me, oh, I can't even run a mile right now. I can't run a marathon. It's like, well, you can't right now.
Yes.
But you can train up to it, and you'd be surprised what God can empower you to do. If you really believe Scripture, if you believe that promise that all things are possible, marathons are included in that, or other events, half marathons, Ironman, whatever.
Yeah, and
it's just, I've seen so many promises of Scripture come alive during my time with Team World Vision.
I think that's probably where I've grown the most in my spiritual journey, is God revealing himself to me in ways that I never knew possible. I got to go and visit our work in the field back in, it was actually February 2020, right? And we were the last trip before the country shut down. Like, I was coming in as they were shutting it all down.
Wow.
But I didn't.
Good timing.
But it was literally like nobody really. My mom was like, "You wearing a mask?" And I was like, "For what?" I didn't even know, like it. But like 3 days later, when I got back, it was like, oh, I probably should have taken some precautions on that. But I remember landing. Is being back in Africa. It's crazy. I was sitting there asking God, how did this happen? How it's a full circle.
Oh yeah.
Thing. And when you hear about the God who directs our footsteps, like you're always kind of like, okay, well, what does that mean? What does that look like? But I think we're so busy in our own heads trying to figure things out that we kind of miss these directions, like he's trying to direct us, and we sometimes we'll miss out on that because we say no, or we don't want to step out in faith. But I think when we're obedient, and even outside that, God is always going to be there to direct our steps. And I remember landing in the sense of just there's like an emotion that I couldn't really articulate, but it was just gratitude and an understanding of how God can just do the most radical things. A guy who, a couple months earlier was just, overweight on the couch after work, not engaged with family, just showing up at church on Sunday. It's like, hey, when's the football game starting? I was not actively engaged in my faith, or, I was, I don't think I was a terrible dad or anything, but like I was not living up to that full potential that God was calling me to be, or to live in. And so just allowing God to work in that space, not just for me, for so many of us, right? We know that God is working, and it's just a really cool way to see that play out in so many people's lives.
Absolutely. Well, I love what you were just saying too about God directing our steps. Like, I saw that scripture come alive so literally when I was running in the Hood to Coast race, which you've done. So for those of you who don't know, Hood to Coast is a relay race, 199 miles that 12 runners tackle together, kind of leapfrog each other. And I was the 9th runner, so I had that stretch of gravel in the middle of the night. And so that particular stretch of the race is all gravel. It's midnight, and it's the dustiest road you've ever seen. And so even though I had a headlamp on, I literally could not see the ground. And I just had, because it was just so dusty, I just was running through this fog. And I just had to pray, like, God, just keep my feet on the rock, direct my steps, because I'm going to break an ankle, because it's really loose gravel, and it worked out. And so, like, I've just learned how to rely on God in ways that I normally don't have to, because so much of our lives is easy, Not that we don't have challenges, but like you were saying earlier, we have such ready access to clean water. We have fridges and pantries of food, and this has forced me to rely on God in ways that I never had to before.
Man, I guess, is this the dusty road where it's like there's a bunch of weird stuff on the side of the road too? But I remember like there was this, I did a night run at Hood to Coast. People are going to think I cry all the time. I think I do now. That night run, that was a hard run.
Oh, yeah.
Did you have a mask?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Luckily, somebody told me they had to bring one.
Yeah.
And when the time came to run, I couldn't find it in the dark.
Oh, no.
And another lady had a mask, and she's like, I wore it earlier. I was like, I don't care. I'll take it.
Yeah.
Because that's how dusty it gets.
Oh, yeah.
And that's a tough run.
I was sick for a couple weeks after that.
Yeah, that is a difficult run. But that run, it's funny that's the one, I ran that same one. And that's the most memorable one for me, is like you're like, Lord, I need you to lead me here. Mm-hmm. And then that makes you understand something in that process. I have led you here. Yeah. Right? I'm not going to stop. Yeah. I'm going to carry you to that finish line. Mm-hmm. And that broke me too. I was like, you have been there this whole time, and you're continue to be faithful. Yep. And those are just the cool little nuggets that I get to experience, doing this thing. And I know a lot of folks who stay committed to that process. It's undeniable the work that God can do in your heart, in your mind, body, soul, whatever, to reveal Himself to you through that.
Absolutely. So one of the last questions I have is, there may be a lot of people watching or listening to this that want to be involved, but maybe it's not the year for them to be running, or they've had a surgery recently, or they're confined, have mobility issues. What are ways that people can get involved if they're not able to participate as a runner or a fundraiser?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, we always want to just encourage people to be praying for this work, that it continues to grow, and that we are following the wisdom and guidance of the Lord to kind of do this work, because there's a lot of intricacies in different delicate areas of the world. So we need to pray for our people, especially our field staff, because the majority of like who does this is our people in the field. Like they are native to their countries, and we're just there to empower them. You know, this is not, it's not our wells, it's their wells. You know, it's not their, you know, schools, like our schools, it's their schools. We just want to empower them and just pray that they can have that endurance, and then, because it's hard work, right? So be praying for them. But always you can give. Worldvision.org is, you know, always, you know, you can especially right now with what's happening in Turkey and Syria, there's a big campaign to try to support those resources. I know we're sending as much as we can there. So worldvision.org is probably a great place to start. We have awesome opportunities just here locally, even if it's just walking. The Global 6K is in May, and that's something we can do. I do it with my kids, you know. And
it's a big family event.
It's it's so much. Get your strollers out there. Of course, you have those who are ready to just, you know, win a world record that day. You got to watch out for those guys. But, you know, most of us, we're just walking. You know, and so it's a really fun opportunity to get your kids and family members involved, and friends, coworkers. Like you said earlier, we have Ironman. We've got, like, you know, a lot of different events, like Chicago. You go run Chicago too. Like, there's a lot of different areas that you can, you know, contribute. But at the end of the day, you know, we want to support our Team World Vision Twin Cities and try and build that team up. So if you know of anybody who would like to join our team, they can always go to teamworldvision.org/Twin Cities to join our team that way as well. And
I would just add too that if you're wanting to support our teams locally here, we do have those group runs on Saturdays. So if you want to support that, and once we get to the longer runs, we need people to help with like water stops and snack stops and stuff like that.
Yes.
That's helpful. You know, if you wanted to partner with a person who's running in your congregation, you know, you could just partner with them and say, I want to help you fundraise. I'm not running, but I want to help you fundraise. So I'll help promote your stuff on social media, anything like that. There are so many ways that you can help. Just ask one of us.
Volunteers are huge. So we have volunteers are what, you know, help us get through our season. And race day, I just want to last plug. Race day is awesome.
It's great.
We have a huge tent at the bottom of the Capitol building, like right in the grass there. We got food. We got, you know, fun music. We got everybody comes through. We want to celebrate them at that finish line down that red carpet. And that red carpet's super important, and it's something that I probably, you know, my favorite part about this season is race day.
Oh yeah.
Because the celebrations, the tears, seeing a lot of, especially our first timers, meeting them, putting on our hero medal, which our hero medal is for anybody who raised over 3,000, which, you know, is probably the medal that I, you know, cherish the most over any of my race medals. But putting that on, and it's just a beautiful, beautiful day. And so any way you can get involved, obviously you can always reach out to us, and teamworldvision.org/Twin Cities has my contact info as well. But yeah, just be praying for God to keep moving in the lives of not just us here, but in the lives of those we're trying to bring impact to around the world.
So just as a last question, is there anything else you'd like to share, or just the floor is yours.
I would just encourage you, because I think maybe somebody's listening. I always wonder at church, you know, there's like a little voice in your head, right? It's saying like, you know, maybe that's me, you know, but you want to dismiss it and say, no, that's for somebody else. But oftentimes that might be the Holy Spirit speaking to you and encourage you to listen to it. And so I would ask you, just like I was asked, to just pray about it. Pray about how you can get involved, and if it's something that God is calling you to do, look into it, reach out. We'd love to connect with you and answer any questions you might have. My stomach's growling, so sorry.
I hear that. So if you have any questions about Team World Vision, certainly Nick is a resource. At Faith Covenant locally as a church, you can talk to me or our team captain, Kevin Zanker. Either one of us would love to answer any of your questions. There's still plenty of time to join the team. So if you missed the information meeting, there's still plenty of time. Like Nick said, training formally starts in April, but like if you don't start until May or June, we can help you catch up too. So
we have a catch-up plan.
Yep, there's a catch-up plan, and there's catch-up plans for like if you have to miss a week or two because you are on vacation or you get injured a little bit. Yeah, we can help you through any of the contingencies. So. any questions, please reach out to us. We're more than happy to help you. I just want to say thanks again to you, Nick. Thank you for having me over and for sharing with us your heart and your passion for this cause. And just thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me. Hope to see some of you at the finish line in October.
Yeah. Well, thank you all for watching or listening, and I hope you all have a wonderful and blessed day.